This is the first video for the Chapter 2 Cumulative Test Review. I already talked to you guys about this in class, but just to remind you, cumulative means that it's going to cover everything that we've covered this year. So not only is it going to be over solving and graphing inequalities in one variable, but it's also going to test some of the Chapter 1 material, the solving equations. So this first part of the review is a review of Chapter 1. So I'm looking at number 1. On number 1 we have 5x minus 10 equals negative 10. So the instructions here tell us that we are supposed to be solving the equation. So remember, when it says to solve an equation, that means you're isolating the variable. You're trying to figure out what that variable equals. So the opposite of negative 10 is to add 10, so we're adding 10 to both sides. When we do that, positive and negative 10 cancel. I bring down my 5x, and then I notice that negative 10 plus 10 is 0. So I noticed in Chapter 1 when you guys got 0, you kind of got stuck. You didn't know what to do. So you want to think about this. This says that 5 times some number is equal to 0. Well, we know that the opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. 5 over 5 makes 1x, and 0 divided by 5 is 0. Okay? So here, my answer is x equals 0. You could always plug it in and check it. 5 times 0 is 0, minus 10 equals negative 10. So I see that that value works in the equation. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and look at number 2. So on number 2, we have 12a minus 3a on the same side of the equal sign. Actually, I can't tell if those are a's or u's on my screen here, but either way, we have 12u minus 3u or 12a minus 3a. And since they're on the same side, we want to go ahead and combine those like terms. So I know that we're going to have 36 equals, and then 12 minus 3 is 9. And I'm just going to call it 9a because I'm not sure what that variable was. The opposite of multiplying by 9 is to divide by 9. And when I do that, I find out that a is equal to 4. Okay? Alright, so I've done 2 examples with you. Why don't you guys pause and try number 3? There was one like this on your homework with the inequalities, so hopefully you guys know what to do. For this problem, the first thing that I wanted to do is get that plus 4 out of the way. So the opposite of adding was subtracting, so I subtracted 4 on both sides, and I got 4 equals c over 7. Remember, when you have c over 7, that's a division problem, and the opposite of dividing by 7 is to multiply by 7. The 7's will cancel, and 7 times 4 is 28. Alright, let's go ahead and look at number 4. So it's asking us to write and solve an equation to answer the question. It says it costs $1,031 for a camping trip. It costs $231 to park for the trip, and $200 a day for the camping site. How many days was the camping trip? Okay. So they gave me a total to start with. They told me that it costs $1,031. So I know that that's what my equation should equal. They also told me that it was $231 to park and then plus an additional $200 per day. So if it's $231 to park plus $200 each day, that 200x comes from the $200 a day. So here's my equation. Go ahead and pause and see if you can solve that. So when you solve that equation, the first thing you needed to do was subtract 231 from both sides. That's where I got 200x equals 800. The opposite of multiplying by 200 was to divide, and 800 divided by 2 is 4. So that means that they went camping for 4 days. For this next section of the video, we're still solving equations. The equations are just getting variables on both sides now. So looking at number 5, the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that all my w's are on one side of the equation and all my numbers are on the other. So remember, you could solve this more than one way depending on where you move your variables. But I'm going to choose to add 8w to both sides because that's the opposite of negative 8w. Those will cancel, And 2w plus 8w is 10w. Now if you move your variables to the right, that means this negative 3 has to move to the other side. And the opposite of minus 3 is plus 3. So when I do that, 17 plus 3 is 20. The opposite of multiplying by 10 would be to divide both sides by 10. And when I do that, I find out that w is equal to 2 in this case. Okay, so we have been solving equations for almost 5 weeks now. So why don't y'all pause, see if you can do 6, and then check your work with mine. So when you go to solve this problem, the first thing that you're going to do is distribute the 5. So 5 times x was 5x. 5 times 4 is 20. That is going to be equal to 2 times 16, which is 32, and 2 times 2x is 4x. I chose to move the 4x to the left by subtracting, because that's the opposite of adding, and 5x minus 4x is x. Since my x's are now on the left, I had to move the 20 to the other side by subtracting, and I find out that x is equal to 12. Okay, so I know that word problems are not the easiest for everyone, but you guys are getting better. I want you to pause. I want you to write and solve the equation for number 7. Okay, so let's talk about how to set this problem up. So the first thing that you notice is they're giving me 2 different golf country clubs. So I called the left side my Ludwig's Fast 18, and my right side I labeled as the Ocean Shore Country Club. Okay, so when you look at Ludwig's, it says that it's a $100 membership fee, so that's a one-time fee. That's why I have 100, plus $30 per month. So that's the 30x. Since I want to know when are the 2 country clubs going to charge the same amount, I set these equal to each other. So Ocean Shore was $160 membership fee, so there's that one-time fee, plus the $10 a month. Okay? So once you solve that equation, you find out that in 3 months, for 3 months, they would charge the same amount. For this last section, they are wanting you to determine if you're going to have one solution, no solution, or infinitely many solutions. So the first thing you have to do is you have to start solving the equations. So if you look at number 8, you should notice that on the same side of the equal sign, we have a 3 minus 12. So I'm going to write y minus 9, because that's what 3 minus 12 is, equals y minus 9. So we've talked about this a lot, and if you see that the 2 sides are actually equal, you know that there are an infinite number of solutions. Okay? Alright, so here, to start solving, we're going to need to distribute, and we're going to get 24v minus 22 equals negative 4 plus 24v. Alright, from this point you want to move all your variables to one side and all your numbers to the other. So that's what I'm going to do first. So the opposite of positive 24 is to subtract 24v. When you do that, you should notice that all your variables cancel. So I'm going to bring down what's left. I have negative 22 equals negative 4. Is that true? And the answer is no. So I know that this one would have no solution. Okay, so hopefully if you were one of those people who did not choose to work your Chapter 1 review a little at a time, you have learned that it is easier to work a little at a time. So this is your first video, and I will be posting some more as the days go by. You guys have a great night.